Imagine that one night, people look up and see an enormous glowing ring above Earth. It encircles the entire planet and resembles the rings of Saturn. But now, this gigantic band of rock, ice, and dust hangs directly above our cities. But where could it have come from? Suppose a small moon was destroyed near Earth. It came so close to the planet that Earth's gravity tore it apart into billions of fragments. These fragments did not fall immediately. They spread out along the equator and formed a wide ring around Earth. From space, our planet would look incredibly beautiful. A blue sphere surrounded by a bright silver disk would resemble a smaller version of Saturn. But from Earth's surface, the ring would look completely different depending on the observer's location. At the equator, it would pass almost directly overhead. However, we would be looking at it edge-on, so it would appear as a thin, bright line stretching across the entire sky from one horizon to the other. At middle latitudes, the ring would turn into a broad, glowing arc. It would rise above the horizon and occupy a large part of the sky. Near the North and South poles, people would see an enormous band of light lying low above the horizon. The ring's shape would not change with the seasons. It would always remain above the equator because Earth's rotation would gradually align its particles into a single plane. At first, people would be unable to take their eyes off it. At night, billions of icy particles would reflect sunlight. In many regions of Earth, darkness would never be complete again. Even without the moon, people would be able to see roads, trees, and the silhouettes of buildings. The stars would become less visible, and in many places, the Milky Way would almost disappear behind the ring's glow. For astronomers, this would become a serious problem. Reflected light would interfere with ground-based telescopes, forcing many observatories to move closer to the poles or into space. But the ring would not only illuminate the night. During the day, it would cast an enormous shadow across Earth. Because of the tilt of Earth's axis, this shadow would move throughout the year. In some regions, the sun would become dimmer for several hours. In others, the ring could partially block the sun almost every day during certain seasons. Temperatures would fall beneath its shadow. Summers would become cooler, while winters would become harsher. The greatest changes could affect tropical regions near the equator. That is where the ring would most frequently pass between Earth's surface and the sun. The amount of sunlight reaching the surface would decrease. Forests would receive less energy. Rainy seasons would begin to shift, and familiar air currents would change direction. Some regions would experience more frequent droughts. Others would suffer prolonged rainfall and flooding. Plants that depended on precise amounts of light and heat would be threatened. This would then affect populations of insects, birds, and larger animals. But the ring itself would not remain motionless. Every section of it would consist of countless fragments. Some would be as small as grains of dust, while others would be the size of cars or entire houses. They would orbit Earth at tremendous speeds and constantly collide with one another. With every collision, large rocks would break into smaller fragments. Dust would scatter, while some pieces would lose speed and begin moving closer to the atmosphere. Meteors would appear almost constantly above Earth. At night, hundreds of glowing trails would streak across the sky. Most smaller particles would burn up high in the atmosphere, creating continuous meteor showers. At first, the sight would seem beautiful. But among the dust, there would also be larger rocks. Some of them would survive their passage through the atmosphere and strike the surface. Smaller impacts would destroy buildings and start fires. Larger fragments would create craters, earthquakes, and tsunamis. The first years after the ring appeared would be especially dangerous, while its structure was still relatively unstable. Humanity would have to create an early warning system and constantly monitor millions of objects above the planet. The ring would completely transform space travel as well. Today, thousands of satellites orbit Earth at different altitudes. They provide communications, television, navigation, weather forecasting, and support many military systems. But if a dense ring crossed their orbits, every mission would become a dangerous game. Even a particle only a few centimeters wide could destroy a satellite in a collision. The destroyed spacecraft would create thousands of new fragments. They would strike other satellites, triggering a chain reaction around Earth. Some orbits would become completely inaccessible. To launch a rocket, engineers would have to find safe gaps between the particles, or guide the spacecraft through less dense regions of the ring. Spaceports near the equator, which are especially useful for launches today, could become the most dangerous of all. Space stations would need additional armor, and missions to the moon and other planets would become far more expensive and complicated. The ordinary sky would change as well. The ring would become humanity's main celestial landmark. People would use its position to determine direction and latitude. It would appear on flags, paintings, coins, and logos. New legends, religions, and holidays would emerge around it. Cities would be designed so that their central streets offered the best possible view of the heavenly arc. Tourists would travel to different countries to see how the ring looked from different angles. But it would not last forever. Earth is not like Saturn. Its atmosphere would be much closer to the hypothetical ring, while the influence of the moon and the sun would gradually disturb the particle's motion. Some fragments would fall to the planet. Others would collide and combine into larger bodies. Some of the material could form several small moons. If the ring consisted mainly of ice, sunlight would gradually cause its particles to evaporate. If it were made of rock, it could survive much longer, but it would slowly become thinner and darker. After thousands or millions of years, only a faint band of dust might remain of the magnificent ring. Craters and layers of unusual rock would remain on Earth's surface as evidence of a time when our planet resembled Saturn. The ring would make Earth one of the most beautiful worlds in the solar system. It would illuminate the nights, alter the climate, and transform human culture forever. But behind that beauty, there would be a constant danger. Every shining point in the ring would be a fragment traveling around the planet at several kilometers per second. We would look up at the magnificent arc above our heads and know that one day, part of this celestial decoration could fall to Earth. Because a planetary ring is not merely a decoration, it is billions of fragments that have not fallen yet.